Hey, hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we worked on a new project I've been thinking about to help out with herbalism in North Ithilien and the Wastes. Today we're going to try to implement the first window, which will show the potential contents of an herb. Last week we got it to the point where you could see it in the standard output as a textual output, and I'd love to get that to be a little bit more user-friendly. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. And in the meantime, let us do a very quick overview. So, we are here in the Wastes. In the Wastes and in North Ithilien, there are a special type of gatherable. They are the herbs that will give you files of extract that you can barter with the herbalists. And it's a whole separate resource system on top of your normal metal nodes and wood nodes and scholar nodes and whatnot. So I'm going to write on out here into the wastes so that we can find an herb to work with. A general rule, just like other resource nodes, the herbs tend not to spawn inside or next to settlements. Oh hey, herbalism quests. Pick those up for later. Wow, that's some daggerlord scrap. I won't say no to daggerlord scrap, though, because we need those bits as well for herbalism stuff. Gnarled branches, no. My goodness. Normally I see so many herbs. Alright, there we go. Aben Gleam. And Mornweed, great. And some Eye of Night. And we can see each of these gives golden extract. So we're going to hang out in this area right now. We're not going to bother to pick them up because we know each of these, what they're going to give us. But when we select it, our plugin is going to detect that we have selected an herb and do something. And we know that's going to give 2 to 3 files of golden extract being right here. We can say I have 295 of them. That's a great start. Could be higher. That's what we're going to be working with. Now, right now, the Herbalism Helper, as it is just a very small form plugin. Actually, there's an extra thing in there that I forgot to remove. I was doing a proof of concept for someone. They were interested in doing like a first-person animation style on top of a completely zoomed-in character. And I was doing a proof of concept. So actually, you know what? We'll take a look at that as well. So I was reminded of Doom by their request. They were looking to animate like sword swings and shield blocks and that kind of thing. And I was reminded that in the original Doom, you had a 3D style environment on top of which 2-dimensional sprites were drawn. So let's take a look at that. So we can see at the bottom here, and maybe it looks a little better if we do go into first-person mode. We have our Doom fists here, and it's just on a cycle, so just every second or two it animates a punching animation. But you could imagine replace that with sword or whatever your weapon happens to be, shield if you are wearing a shield, and a little bit more sense of what's going on in combat. And I thought it was a really neat project, so I wanted to throw together a little proof of concept there. But I'm done with the proof of concept, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. And also those things. Great. So let's go back to our working directory here and see if we don't have any changes. Okay, so we have just a few added sample loot drops. We're going to go ahead and save that off. And then, what else? Alright, stored flora data better. This is what we were working on last time. And I think we are going to take a look at our issues to remind ourselves what we're working on here. So we have implement window instead of just log messages. Awesome, that's a goal. Take into account if you're targeting something when you load the plugin. That's going to be super easy. You can knock it out later. Actually, you know what? Let's do that one first. It's going to be very helpful for testing. And then we also have take into account Fateful Toolkit style things. That might be worth doing as well, just because I'd love for the numbers to make sense whenever we are looting. So let's go ahead and start with these things, and I've dragged that around in the wrong direction. So take into account if you're targeting something when you load the plugin. So right now, if we are targeting Eye of Night and we load the plugin, we have to click off and then back on. I wonder if I can just click. Nope. So what I'd like to do is, when the plugin loads, just check, is the local player targeting something? And if so, go ahead and do whatever logic we would also do when the target changes. I think that's going to be pretty easy to do here. So let's come on in here. So we have a target changed equals something. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and extract this out into a function. So function handle target changed. And what we'd like to do is go ahead and move this here and call that from here, handle target changed. And what that should do is everything should still work the way it did. Great. More and wait over there. Okay, we can see 1 to 2 files of golden extract. Great. But that means that we can just go ahead and do this this check. So let's make a function main. Do plugin startup things, and then main. So we don't actually need a function body here, though I feel like it's a little bit more organized to have very few top-level statements, if possible. So what we'd like to do is start moving things into functions so that there's basically a single top-level statement, which is do the stuff. So we have our import statements, and we have function definitions, and we say run a function. But for right now, let's test this out and say, okay, hey, wait a sec. It became day, my Eye of Night disappeared. Oh, hélas, what's on the... Okay, well, we still have more than weed. It's just you and me. Okay, and we can see now when we load, we are checking, and that works because the first thing we do in handle target change is we get the target, and if it exists, I guess we should double check. Great. And if there is a target, then we do something. Otherwise, we don't. Now, are we actually using selected target name? We are not, and I want to get rid of a global here. So I want to get rid of that. Selected target name, I want to get rid of that. And I want to get rid of that. I'm not a fan of global singleton style things. They're an easy way to set yourself up for sadness later on, and I don't need that. Okay, great. Still works just fine. So let's go ahead and commit our changes here. In fact, let's break that up into 2 bits. Let's do this change first. Okay, so hoisted target changed logic, also call it on startup. And we can see the actual change turns out to be very little because what was inside the target changed is now just right after the target changed. And also we added our, actually call it function. So we're going to go ahead and save that. Then we're going to go ahead and redo the additional changes. And we can see we're going to go ahead and removed global variable selected target name. Okay, and let's double check that that looks good. So that's gone. Selected target name is gone. Now we're using target get name. Great. And that else no longer does anything. That looks great. Okay. So, what else? Like I said, I'd like to get rid of anything that's not a function at the file level in our main.lua. So, this code right here, I would like to go ahead and register target changed. So this is going to be function register target changed, and it's going to do the same basic thing. But that's all going to be in here. So local player equals that, and we don't really need that local player. In fact, is that useful? It's useful enough. Okay, I'll allow it. We'll go ahead and save off local player here globally because there is the reason why I'm flexible on this is just a reference to the what is returned by get instance, and that is a static global singleton in and of itself. Local player.get instance always returns the same thing, and if you call it now or you call it later, you're going to get the same thing. There's no benefit to calling this later on because you're just going to get the same thing. So this is just a syntactic shorthand for this, and I think that's fine. The only problem where this could rear its head is if you were doing some sort of unit testing and you wanted to pass in a thing that looks like a local player that you have constructed. But we're not doing that right now, and if we do, we'll see. I think you could still just reassign this instead of calling this, just say local player equals your own custom table, and it might still work. Okay, but in the meantime, we have local player there, we have local player here. Design nodes, pay attention to target has no name. So, okay, that's all working at the moment. So, before we actually commit that, let's go ahead and load. Select Mornweed, great. Unload, load, it's still selected. That's great. And Evan Gleam. Anything else in here? Ooh, a lavish chest. And a wolf. Go away. That's true. I will definitely pause for these lavish chests. Okay. Great. So let's go ahead and go back to our source control and take a look. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just do that. Removed, implemented design notes. Okay, what else? Moved top level statements into function. Except for local player. That's a bit long. Okay, and we can double check what we've done here. We can see this is the same except for indenting. So now it's inside of a function, and that function is getting called. Lovely. We'll go ahead and push out those changes. Okay, so what do we have here? I would like a hash, and we're going to come in here and say fixed in that commit. We can see the preview, it renders correctly, it knows what that is, and we can go ahead and close with this comment. Bam. Okay, going back to issues. What? I said close. Okay, it just took a minute. Great. One fewer issues. Take into account Fateful Toolkit style things. Fantastic. So, I'm not exactly sure how to do this, though I think it is possible. But what we want to do is look at the toolkit slot of the player's equipment and say, is this a Fateful Toolkit or its other language version? So the first thing to do is let's go ahead and contemplate how we're going to do localization here. Okay, let's import qplugins.herbalismhelper.strings. So we're going to go ahead and make a strings.lua. And here, we want to go ahead and pay attention to language at some point. We can start with that now. So if we go to turbine engine methods, there's a get language function that's going to return the current language. So local lang equals turbine.engine.get language. Great. So what we can do is say if lang equals turbine.language.english, then actually let's do the other way. French then, else if lang equals turbine.language.german, then else if, and we can even do equals turbine.language.russian if we thought that was useful. I'm not actually sure it is, because I think Russian is handled slightly differently. So, but we'll go ahead and do an else here and then end. So default to English. And then if it turns out some Russian players would like this to work for them, we can come back in and add support for that. There's a separate thing that we can do for that. Okay. So we are looking for lang equals this. So lang dot fateful toolkit equals something. Not sure yet, what it is yet. We'll figure it out. Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the data files so that we get everything spelled just right, because we are looking for a textual match, I think. So I'm going to come into the labels, items. Great. Let's bring that on over onto this screen. So we're looking for Fateful Toolkit. And does that match what we're looking at? Fateful Toolkit. It is a match. So we're going to go ahead and open the wrong window. Coming into here, Fateful Toolkit. What we want to do is take that value and do a quick search. Add a folder. Great. And we can see the German version of that. Schicks Alhafter Werkzeugsatz. I'm going to assume I did not say that correctly. Okay, so there we go. We do have a Russian value for that. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and document it here in case we are adding that support later. it'll just be here. I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so at that point, we can do something like turbine.shell.writeLine toolkit. And we'll go ahead and pop that in there as well. Let's go ahead and unload and reload, and we can see correct. We are getting Fateful Toolkit out of our language table. So a lot of times people will make a table, and I've done this myself, where you have the lang table and then you have either Fateful Toolkit and then /en or en and then Fateful Toolkit. But I'm trying to get more in the habit of not using the languages that we're not loading, right? Like if we're loading English, then the French and the German strings do not need to be in our tables at all. There's no point to them. It has its pluses and its minuses, but I'm gonna try to do it from the ground up here and see what I like about it and what I don't like about it. Okay, but done with that. So what we want to do next is to say, how do we look at our inventory and decide if we have the Fateful Toolkit? And we're going to want to do this each time we are about to inspect a flower, because if someone for some crazy reason is equipping or de-equipping their Fateful Toolkit, we don't really care about that. We just care, do we have it right now when we are looking at the flower? On the assumption that that'll be close enough to being correct. So let's go to the API documentation, and we're going to be looking at the turbine.gameplay, and we're going to be looking at the local player, and we can see there's a get equipment call. So that's the player's backpack. Okay, that's plausible. The equipment is the set of items the player is currently wearing. These items are accessed like an array with specific indices corresponding to specific inventory slots. That sounds amazing. That sounds like exactly what we want. So what we would like is a function that we can call function is Fateful Toolkit equipped. And this is an is function, so we should be returning a Boolean value. Local result equals false, return result. If something, then result equals true, and this is kind of the basic structure of an is function. We have a default value. If something changes, cool, we'll use that instead. Some people like to code golf it to where you're just doing a single like return equipment equals blah, and that's fine. It's really. But when we're first writing the code, this is what we're doing. So the question is, how do we use the equipment? Okay, so local equipment equals local player get equipment. Okay. So we know this is an equipment. Oh, good. And we know that there are numbers here. Tool. Back boot space place a craft tool. Okay, so we're looking for craft tool. Great. So how do we do this? Equipment. That is an equipment. Get item. Local craft tool equals equipment. Get item. Turbine dot gameplay dot equipment dot craft tool. Okay, I don't know if that's always guaranteed to be something. So I'm going to check if it's not null, and craft tool dot get name equals lang, and then whatever I said that was. Fateful Toolkit. Then shell.writeLine found the Fateful Toolkit. So, I'm going to go ahead and call this function testing every time we load the plugin, just to see if it's working. So, loaded, found Faithful Toolkit. Okay, now let's unequip it to make sure that that is... Okay, we did not find the Faithful Toolkit. Unload, load, unload, load. Found the Faithful Toolkit. Okay, so we're definitely reacting to the presence of the Faithful Toolkit in that function. Perfect. What we want to do then is, instead of using it in main, we're going to do it in handle target changed. So if the target, then herb. If the herb, then function handle herb targeted. Gotta spell function correctly. All right, we're going to come back to is that equipped. But what I wanted to do is do I want to do that? I kind of do. Okay. So what I'm trying to avoid is all of this nesting getting too deep within a certain function. Handle target changed. Its only goal should be to figure out, are we targeting an herb, and if so, pass off the responsibility to the next thing. So then handle target herb. Okay, we are targeting an herb. And that means we could call this via a testing system if we want to say, okay, I want to pretend I'm targeting this herb. If, for instance, we can't find the silly thing in the wild, we now have an ability to fake this out by testing it. For instance, we can say handle herb target eye of newt. I think it's actually night. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and unload and load. And my goodness, that didn't work. Attempt to locate index local flora. Great. I love error messages. Let's figure out what that means. So that's line 85. No. That's flora.lua. Oh. Okay, I mistook how this works. Herbalism for a lookup. Okay, so I should have passed in 17, as it turns out. Or, better yet, eye of night. There we go. Eye of night, 2 to 3 files of golden extract. So now we have a way to test out all the different flora by simply calling this function from somewhere. Won't do that right now, but we have it available as an option. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of found that. We're going to return result 2. Great. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is actually use this Faithful Toolkit equipped in the textual output before we do anything else. So local is, well, sure. I mean, seems silly, but yes. So flora yields to strings, and we're going to go ahead and pass in is Faithful Toolkit equipped, and we'll be able to use that here. So the question is, what does it look like? And the answer is in those cases where the minimum and maximum are the same, then that number is going to be 1 higher. So min, max, blah. So if value.min that, and then if e is faithful toolkit equipped, then count equals count plus 1. End. And then count's a string. Count equals that plus 1. There we go. Now, it might be easier to say if is faithful toolkit equipped, then count equals value.min plus 1, else count equals min end. And then we can do the same thing down here. If is that, then else end. And here it's going to be slightly different because it's going to matter if value.min equals 0, then we have a special situation, and I've just hit page up, which is not a good idea. So if that's equal to 0, then we only want to adjust the maximum. So so the minimum stays the same because that minimum doesn't go to 1, but we can concatenate value max plus 1. Else we can go ahead and do both of them. Min plus 1 and value max plus 1. Okay. If text, what are you? Okay, let's start off. You know what? I was thinking about doing a test function. I think we should do a test function. So what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and call for I man, I always forget Lua for loops. Yes, a numeric for what I equals, and here we can actually take advantage of the fact that we want to iterate from a dwarf beard to I of night. There we go. Do, and we're going to handle herb target I end. So that's just testing this on startup. Okay, wow, that's a lot of text, as expected, I suppose. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, as expected. Great. So dwarf spirit, we can actually compare this to what we expect here. So let's go to the flora. Dwarf beard, we're expecting minimum 1, maximum 1. Oh, hey, these things respond. Don't mind if I do. Great. Okay, so stuff is scrolling off here. So dwarf beard, we're expecting 2 because that's the minimum 1, maximum 1, and we found my toolkit. Okay. Elf spear, again 2. Southern crown 2. Next one, horsetail is 3. Great. Oxlip is 3. Fetchling is 3. The next one is the tricky one. So this is, we're looking for 3 things, I think. So Drake Wart. We can see that's going to be tricky. Okay, that bit at the end is where we're going to need some extra work, but I think the rest of this is looking really good. So Bellowdale, we can see we're expecting 3, but Bellowdale gets adjusted to 0404, great. Buckthorn, 05, so we can see 0 to 6 of each of those, awesome. Rock Rose also has maximum 5, becomes 6. Larkspur has 4 to 5 expected. And yep, 0 to 6, okay. And then Flora, Wraith Scowl, 1 to 2, that's 2 to 3, great. 2 to 4 is 3 to 5, Bone Mouse 3 to 5, that's 2 to 3 for Avengleam, Mornweed, 2 to 3, and then finally Eye of Night, 3 to 4. Okay, all of that's working great, except for how we are calculating the min maximum, which needs to be adjusted. So the minimum needs to go up by 1, and the maximum needs to go up by the number of possible categories that it can be. Because if you had 1 in each of these categories, they would each be adjusted by 1. Okay, I'm remembering how this works. It's been a busy week. I have not been doing much herbalism over the last week, sadly. Okay, so what we want is the min and max needs to go up by the number of the yields. So what I want to double check is if I do number of yields, and what we want is flora dot yields, and I think you can just put a number sign there. I mean, let's find out. All right, that needs to go somewhere else. Okay, great. So we can see number of yields 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Here we have 3. Here we have 2. 3, 3, 3, 3, 1, 1. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So we can use that number of yields. So we can say if is Fateful Toolkit equipped, then else. So that'll be as normal. And actually, we did kind of want to collapse these down. If the min and the max are the same, we would like to just say that. So local min equals flora.yields.min. Local max equals flora.yields.max. If the Fateful Toolkit is equipped, then min equals min plus 1, max equals max plus, and we can use this thing, the number of the yields. Can kill that then. And then we can go ahead and do nothing if it is else. Okay. And then if min equals max, then else, and we do this, end. And then we're just going to go ahead and do min, cut that out. Okay, let's give that a try. I didn't actually switch to using min and max though. Should probably do that, otherwise I'm not going to get correct results. There we go. So, let's get a separator here. Testing. Okay, that's maybe a few too many dashes. Perfect. Okay, so we have two files of umbar extract, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. We have 0 to 4, 0 to 4, 0 to 4. So we know we're getting, it was 3 to 3, but we know we could get up to 3 extras and 1 extra minimum. So it's 4 to 6. Awesome. Bellow Dales, 4 to 5. Then we have the other ones, which were something else, like 4. That's become 5 to 8. Awesome. And then let's go ahead and do this without our Fateful Toolkit. So unloading that and reloading. We can see all these 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 0, 3, 0, 3, 3 total. Oh, that code's working great. Another 3, 3, 3 total. 0 to 5, that's 4 to 5 total. Okay. That's why it was 5 to 8 before. And we have each of those 3. And then 1 to 2 to 4. Oh, that's 3 to 4. Okay, so the logic for what we're expecting works in this textual form. So we can use this as an inspiration for how to build up the user interface. Fantastic. Okay, so what does this look like? Should probably not have that. But I will save it off just in case we want it in the near future. So we've got everything saved. Let's take a look at our code changes. So in strings, we've added translations for Fateful Toolkit. You know what I didn't do? Wait, did I include strings in main? How is this working? I did. Phew. Yee. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and stage that. Great. What else did we do? Flora and main. Okay. Okay, here we're going to go ahead and say, instead of these 2 lines, we're calling handle or target. This comes here, and we have the same stuff. Okay, split out herb handling code into separate function. Then we have, oh, that was a mistake because, oh, that's fine. Check for is Fateful Toolkit. So we're going to go ahead and use that and that. And adjust calculations based on Fateful Toolkit. And that's all of this. Okay. Now, one thing I'd like to do is mark that the goal is partially done. Take into account standard output adjusted this commit. Okay, so the standard output has been adjusted. We do want to remember to take it into account in the actual window, which is the next thing. So, implement window instead of log messages. That's the next thing we're going to work on. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and double check that this is working the way we expect it to. And the way we're going to do that, I've got the Fateful Toolkit. So we're going to go around and say, okay, this file, a golden extract, should get me 2 to 3. This is taking into account the Fateful Toolkit. All right, I got 2. Perfect. Well, this chest isn't a part of it, but I'm going to take it anyway. Oh, there's another Avon Gleam over here. All right, this should be 2 to 3. It was 3. Mornweed should be 2 to 3. It is 3. Okay, I'm going to try to move further afield. There we go, bone meal. This should be 3 to 5 vials of violet extract. It was 3. What I'm really looking for is a failure to predict. That will mean that our data is not quite right. This should be 3 files of umbar. It is 3 files of umbar. Love it. Dust nettle should be 3 to 5 files of violet. Wolves should not attack me. Okay, that was 4. Great. Wraith's Cowl. This should be 2 to 3 files of violet. And it was 2. 2 to 3, it was 2. Great. Bone Mallow should be 3 to 5. It was 3. So all that's looking great so far. Obviously, I would need to collect way more to double check. The bone meal, we're expecting 3 to 5. I already clicked off to the horsetail. 4, great. Horsetail should be exactly 3. And then there's another Wraith's Cowl over here. And this is 2 to 3. It was. This is 3 to 5. It is. Be neat if we could get one of the multiple ones here. I'm going to move over into the closer to the water and see if we can't get one of those at least. But hey, 3 to 5 violet extract. Alright, it was 5. I'll get the mornweed just because I want that golden extract. Okay, well, the basic logic is there. And we haven't seen any places where that basic logic is failing. So let's go ahead and look at a window. Now, what I would like is something that can be moved around in case your target window is in a different place. It could use this same style frame though. And that could be a thing where we clip that out. If we found a reasonably flat background of a different color, so maybe this guy, we might be able to do that reasonably well. Let me just see. Okay, so If we go ahead and try to fuzzy select in and out, we're going to get something that looks pretty reasonable, actually. I'm worried about the edges will be a little bit bluer than I would want, and obviously we're going to mix the text in here. Yeah, we can see there's some dark blue here where it's doing some merging between the foreground and background colors, and that could be fine, but I'm worried if we go ahead and do one. If we had a white background, you can see that standing out really well compared to, say, a black background where it wouldn't be there at all. So it kind of depends on what it's on top of, but it's fine for a first attempt. So we're going to go ahead and delete that layer, and we'll go ahead and image crop to content and call it good enough for the background of a window. So we're going to go ahead and export that as Lord of the Rings Online, plugins, Cube plugins, Herbalism Helper, resources, and this is going to be a TGA. So this is going to be a stop it. Call it target window background .tga. We're going to get a question about defaults. They're fine. Okay, so that gives us a close approximation. Now, what is useful to know is how big is this thing? And we can see that this is 315 by 81. Awesome. So we'll be done with that. Okay, so what I want to do is make a window, and I would like the window to be draggable. The question is, should you have to be holding down the shift key or something? And the answer is maybe. However, dragability is something we can bring in later. So for right now, I just want to focus on getting a window up and going. Let's get closer to this bone mallow, though. Okay, so how is this going to work? Let's go ahead and make a new file called targetWindow.lua. And this is going to be a window. We want a subclass window. That'll be easier, I think, in the long run. So, what does this look like? Well, I don't remember, but I do know that I have done this in another place. So I'm going to pull that up real fast. Okay, so subclassing looks like this. And so the first thing we're going to do is make sure we import it. So import Cube plugins Herbalism Helper target window. No .lua, that will mess it up. And in here we can go ahead and say target window equals class turbine.ui.lotro.window. Now, problem with this is this will in fact fail unless we have a few additional things. So we're going to have libraries. Actually, we're not going to call it libraries. We're going to call it, rename, turbine files. And in turbine files, we want to bring in class and type. And once we have those, this line will in fact not fail. Perfect. So we probably only want one of these windows at a time, and so the singleton code here, that could be fine. If we wanted to do that, that would be target window.instance equals nil, and then function target window get instance would look like the same thing. If target window.instance does not equal nil, then return target window.instance else, or end, we can really do, return target window. So return a new one. Now that works if the constructor sets the instance to this. So function target window constructor, sure, enforce only one such window. If target window dot instance, then return. Otherwise, turbine.ui dot win. This is a window, not a LOTRO window. Dot constructor self, and that's just the standard dispatching towards a parent function language. And then we have target window dot instance equals self, and then do whatever else. Other initialization here. Cool. So what is the other initialization? Well, we know self set size. We know that's going to be 315.81 because that's what it needs to be. And self set background, we're going to be how do we want to write that? Set background cube plugins dot resources, and then that's going to be called target window background dot tga. Now we can do that to start. It might be helpful to hoist that out somewhere, like in images files or something. Or have a get image function, a central function. We have a general functions. That could be nice. Let's do that. Function get image. Is that now? Well, I'm not even sure we're going to have more images. We'll just start with this. Okay, so we also want to set its position. Self set position x, y. Now, where do we want this? Well, we're going to hard code it for right now. Eventually, we want to be able to make a change. But for now, we just want to know where is this window. So if we just take a screenshot of that and come into something like MS Paint, then we can come on in here and say, okay, this cursor is about here. That's 560 by 150. Sounds great. Okay. The redhead asks me, I think, what box are you into on the LI track on Treebeard? What a great question. Let's go find out. I am into box 10. Well, I've completed box 102, and I'm into box 103, it looks like. And apparently I've claimed these things? No, I have not. I've claimed nothing. Ugh, that's going to take a minute. But yes, this character is a little bit ahead on that. There are some solo quests in the herbalism, well, not the well, kind of the herbalism. In the slag hills, there are some solo quests that I've done a couple of that Rosenblum has not, and that's helped a little bit. Okay. Also, more of my alts can turn in 15 tasks per day instead of 5 tasks per day, and that makes a difference as well if you do that a couple days in a row. But that just takes, I hesitate to use the word grinding, but sure, it takes grinding out enough tasks on enough alts that you can move their buttons over to the right characters, where a character can now do 15 tasks instead of just 5. And each character can get themselves to 10, but they need to take 5 more from other alts and concentrate them on a few characters. And so I have 4 primary characters here on Treebeard, which correspond to the sort of the classic vocational pairs, and those 4 can each do 15, and also an alt that's sitting at like level 51, I think, just for LIXP stuff. But yeah, there's a few of those. Okay, so we have this, and what we want to do is make sure we get the target window get instance. So we're going to go ahead and in main, we're going to go ahead and target window get instance. We want to make sure that's completed. Or that's generated. But that's really it. Let's give that a try and see what is up. It didn't work. Okay, so we forgot to actually include those class files, and that's going to be really important because otherwise it won't work. So we're going to go ahead and bring in this as well. So this is Herbalism Helper, Turbine Files, class. Okay, let's try it again. Oh, of course. There's some hard-coded references in class and type that need to be updated each time you bring them into a new project. At the top, type needs to make sure it has class imported, and when class is done being imported, it tries to import type. So that's just something you have to watch out for, but these error messages are pretty helpful when it comes to that. Great. We now have a window created, but we didn't call show. And this is an important distinction, is the default state of a turbine.ui.window is hidden, I believe, and the default state of a turbine.window.lotro.window, I believe, is visible. So let's go ahead and target window set visible to true. Boy, that didn't work. Okay, 57. Local window equals that window set visible. Great. We've got it, and it even looks reasonable. It's over a couple of pixels. I knew that was going to come back to haunt me. It's like, surely, running up 3 pixels, I won't care, and I did. Okay, so this is a framework in which to draw our stuff. It might end up that we don't actually want something as elaborate as this, but I just thought it'd be nice to say, okay, let's play around with this. Now, if we use that, then we're going to want to make sure we draw inside this border, and I have foolishly already closed the GNU image manipulation program, but let's go ahead and pull it back up. And where is... There we go. So what we want to do is know what's the usable area inside this thing. And the easiest thing to do is to essentially figure out how much left and right we're willing to give up. So that's 2 pixels left, 3 up, or 2 up, 3 left. I think that makes more sense here. And whatever it was I just said, we're giving up 3 on that side, so we're probably giving up 3 on that side as well. Great. Okay, so the real question is, what are the values there? So we're at 12 and 10? Does that make sense? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, okay. So 12 and 10 over. So let's go ahead and start making some notes here. Self dot left margin equals 12. Self dot top margin equals 10. Self dot right margin equals something or another. It's also 12. And 9 on the bottom. Interesting. That's fine. Oh, this thing isn't as trimmed as it could be. That's funny. Okay. So we're going to actually call that 12 self.bottom margin equals 9. That's going to be 9 because up here we can see we actually had a bit of a sloppy removal of, oh, and we can see it on the left as well. What was I doing? Okay, so the left margin is actually going to be 11, I think. Yeah, on the right could also be 11. Okay, so one thing is just we can come down here and just delete anything that might have been left there. And same thing here. And then we should be able to image crop to content. There we go. So image canvas size, it's now 314 by 80. by 80. Okay. And we'll go ahead and overwrite that. Okay, so what do you mean invalid function call? Was that me? No, okay, that was the previous thing that I fixed. Okay, so we have some hard-coded values for the background image and for where we can draw in here. We have to draw to the right of the left margin, below the top margin, and we know how many pixels we can go to. So we can go ahead and make a drawable control that is making use of these things. So local files control equals turbine.ui.control control. And this is going to be files set parent. We got to parent it to self. And just for testing, files.control set back color to turbine.ui.color. I don't know, something dark khaki, whatever that color is. Oh, that's not going to be good. That's not even dark. Dark orchid? Yeah, that looks better. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and say files control set size. That's going to be equal to self get width minus self.left margin minus self.right margin. That's the first thing. And the second thing is going to be self.get height minus self.top margin minus self.bottom margin. So that's the drawable space that we can do. And then the files control set position. That's going to be self.left margin and self.top margin. So that makes this smaller by our margin amounts and shifts it over and down by our left and top, which should, if all goes well, if we've done this correctly, give us a, yeah, there we go. We can see that's the area in which we feel comfortable drawing. Now we could actually make it a little bit bigger. We could use all of that space, but then we'd be overlapping the corners. And that may or may not be desirable. If we are controlling ourselves and we're centering everything correctly, maybe it makes more sense to stretch this out a little bit. So we could always revisit this. But in the meantime, we have a drawable area, and this is where we're going to put our files. What we're going to do is list each of the types that can be found. Cats are doing some crazy sounding things back there. We've had that toy for 3 years and you're playing with it today? Sure. Why not? Just found it. Just opened his eyes. I'm going to go get some Dagger Lad scrap while I regain my thought process. Okay, so what we want to do is we would like to center ourselves in this, a visual representation of each of the files. Now, in Titan Bar, we have each of the files, or we have the reference for, image number for each of these files here. So let's go grab those while we are thinking about it. And, you know, this is a good time to make an images class. Images.lua. Okay, target window background equals something or other. Why am I being attacked by this fly? Do you have a mind? No, you don't, so I can't fear you. It's the one downside of a minstrel. Minstrel's all upsides, and then their fear effect, the invocation of Elbereth, does require the target to have some sort of a mind that can fear Elbereth. So if you get too low down on the food chain, they're just like, I don't know what that is, but you still look tasty. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hoist this on out. But we'll go ahead and say resources dir equals, and that's going to be all of this, which means we can use this here, resources dir, concatenated it with the name of the file, and that'll save us from a lot of copy paste. So the next thing we need to do is actually make use of this. So we want to make sure images is being imported. Import Q plugins. That's me. Herbalism Helper .images. And then thank you. And then in images, sorry, not in images, in here we can go ahead and do images target target background. There we go. And with IntelliSense, we can hover over it and see, okay, that's target window background .tga. What am I doing? I should stop standing in the path of everything. All right, we're going back to the lowlands here. Okay, so we've updated that to use an images array table as a centralized place for it. Great, that's working fine. So next up, we want to go for the files. And for these, we're actually going to do something slightly different. Okay, we're going to go to Havna Titan Bar, and then Titan Bar maintenance. So adding a new currency, add in currencies.lua. Great, there we go. Okay, so we need File, and we're going to go ahead and we don't actually need Amber and Sapphire because everything can have them, but nothing is expected to have them at any particular time. So what we want to do is oh, goodness. What do I want to do? I don't feel strongly about whether keys should be like all caps or anything, but there is something to be said for consistency one way or the other. So, since so many plugins that I have been doing maintenance on or whatnot do this kind of thing, we're just going to go ahead and come on in. For any extract, we're going to come in here. For any file, go ahead and do that, and then go ahead and edit, convert case, uppercase. There we go. Cool. So we have that, and we know we want to, for each of these, it's going to be a key equals a resource dir concatenated with something. Actually, no, we have image IDs for each of these. Nice, I'm sorry. So for each of these, we're going to bring that over. Great. So we have those, and we don't need to load that from a directory. So that is gone, and that is our images. So that means we could go ahead and just draw these just as a sanity check. Now, we have to kind of guess at their sizes, but it's probably 36 by 36, give or take. So we'll start there. So, we're going to go ahead and testing draw a file. And testing. So, local, whatever the first one is, crimson file equals turbine.ui.control, and crimson file, we need to set the parent to the files control, and we should think about whether we want to have access to this later on after we're done with the constructor. If we do, we can go ahead and assign a parameter to self. I think we'll burn that bridge when we cross it. Okay, we'll come back to it. So, crimson file, set size 36 by 36, and crimson file, set background to, and this is going to be images dot file crimson extract. Crimson file, set position. I mean, we don't even need to do that. It's going to be 0, 0. That's fine for testing. So, bam. Now we can see that it's starting to wrap there. Let's see what 32 by 32 looks like. Perfect. Okay. And Titan bar, is that match what we see there? It does. I should have realized 32 by 32 is the default size. I was thinking there was a border, but there is not. Okay. Now we are seeing that it is overriding the background color of the thing it is a part of. And there's a way around that if we wanted to have the back color, the background blending, if we wanted to change that. But I think just like the targeting window is semi-transparent for these objects, I think it is fine. This back color is not long for this world. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to have a list of the files that we want to show, and underneath it we want a label that shows how many we expect. I think. You know what? I got rid of this test output. I said I'm saving it off just in case, and here we are. Okay. So the things we want to be able to represent in this window are a single version of umber, verdant, crimson, violet, and golden, and 3 different things that are crimson, umber, or verdant. I feel like there's going to be a lot of wasted space here, but then I look at this target window and it's a lot of space for a single word. So I think it's probably going to be fine. So if this were crimson, if this were dwarf spear that we were looking at, I would want to see 2 under, well, I guess crimson. Southern's crown, I would want to see 2 under this. But we have a lot of space, and I think it might be useful to include the name, or at least a limited version of it, like crimson, maybe. Because these colors are not as distinct as I think they could be, especially if you're not seeing all of them together. When I see all of them, all 7 of them on Titan Bar, I feel like I can distinguish between them. But if you just showed me one of them, I'm not sure I could put a name to that color. Oh, apparently that's umber, that's verdant, that's golden, that's violet, that's crimson, but that's amber. Crimson and amber seem a little close to me. Umber and verdant seem a little close to me. The rest of them I could probably figure out in isolation. So if we can use the word as well, like 2 to 3 crimson, that sounds great. We don't need to use the files of whatever extract, I don't think, for this. Although we are not doing a hover over text, and that would be interesting. Like if you were able to hover over this thing and it said file of amber extract, would that be helpful or useful? A file of crushed herbs and flowers for use by healers. Oops. What's this Avant doing? Do you have a brain? You do have a brain. Phew, the old breath. Okay. I think if that feels useful, we can add that later. We don't need to worry about that right now. So, I am picturing a composite control that is going to have an image up above and the name of the text down below. 2 to 3 crimson, 0 to 4 umber, 0 to 6 verdant, whatever. Somewhere in here, if there are 3 of them, if it's one of the composites, I would still want that 5-8 total text that we can put somewhere. I'm guessing that'll be off to the right. If each of these things has text below it, I don't think there's much room underneath that. Okay. So, let's go ahead and start adding a little documentation of our thought process so far. Also, I'm trying to take a snip of just this, please. Okay, so we've begun by making a window that looks like the target window for herbs, and have demonstrated that we can draw a file on it. In fact, let me come back and do a resnip here. Now, if you're not familiar with GitHub, you can paste an image and it'll get uploaded as a user attachment, and you can see it like this. The next step, update, no, make an additional version of whatever that function is. Flora, there we go. Flora yields to string. Make a parallel version of Flora yields to string that gives us a table of info for display. And iPairs compatible list. Really? Have I misspelled compatible? I sure have. An iPairs compatible list of files to show, plus the 3 to 5 total text where appropriate. Uses a table an iPairs compatible list of files plus their label contents. 0 to 4 verdant. Or 3 umber. Okay, 3 umber. To show plus 3 by total text where appropriate. Okay. Note, make sure we retain the Fateful Toolkit changes from number 2. Okay, so if we go ahead and comment this, we have documented our work so far, and that's useful if we don't remember what we've done next week. If we stopped right now, we still have a sense of what's going on. Next step, make a parallel version of Flora yields to string that gives us a table of info for display. An iPairs compatible list, that is, the keys start with 1, then go 2, 3, 4. That way we can iterate through in a deterministic order instead of seemingly at random. Because what we really want is that each time the window comes up, we want to maintain this order in crimson, then umber, then verdant, always. And we only get that reliably within numerical indices that start with 1 and increment by 1 with no gaps. Okay. Those frogs are sitting on top of this scrap. Okay. Mornweed, 2 to 3 files. So, first thing we want to do is make the window show up whenever we are targeting an herb and not show up when we are not targeting an herb. And for that, we're going to come on in here and let's get rid of the background color. Let's get rid of drawing that file. Let's come into main and not do anything there. Oh, you know what? Initialize target window. And then in the targeting here, we're going to go ahead and say target window get instance set visible true, and target window something. Show loot for herb. Cool, we need a show loot function. So, not doing anything yet, but we do want that. Let's not worry about herb being found or not, because we don't want to have us being setting the visibility. We would like the target window to do that itself. If herb, then else end. So if we are targeting the herb, then set ourselves visible. Otherwise, false. Now, we can simplify this, of course, to target window. Well, no, we can do self in here. Self set visible herb equals does not equal nil. So if it's not nil, we found something, we should be visible. And then we can collapse that back down. So if not herb, then return. Only adjust visibility if we are not targeting an herb. Change the Windows display. Now, when we stop targeting something, we could clear things out. That would be fine. Actually, we might want to clear things first. Clear the current display, and then set the visibility. Populate the Windows display. Something like that. Remove stuff. No. Set the Windows visibility. I kind of think if we're hiding the window, then we want to do that before we do anything else. If not herb, then self set visible false end. But is it end? Because we can just return then. Return. Clear, populate, and then by definition we can just set the visibility to true at this point. Now that we've changed anything we're going to do with the window. Okay. Now that everything is ready, show the window. Okay. So, that means we're telling the target one to show the loot herb might be nil, and that's totally fine. That needs to be target window get instance. And I feel like we don't actually need to initialize it on startup. We can do it on the first use. Because if you never target one, why take that penalty? Okay. So let's unload this. Let's come back to Herbalism Helper. We are not updating the visibility. That's fine. Set visible. We're not doing that here. Okay. Set visible. Turbine.shell.writeLine. Target window. Show loot. Let's see what we've got here. Oh, yes. Right, okay, so horsetail is visible, unselect. Okay, handle target change. If target, local herb, handle target change. Okay, local herb equals nil. So handle target changed, because herb can be nil. We're going to actually move Ithilien toolkit into that function. So if herb, handle target, we get the target, we know our herb is default to nil. If there's a target, then we'll set herb to be the lookup, which could still be nil. Then we dispatch it to herb target. This is a possibly null value. We pass off to show loot, and then if it's not nil, then we'll go ahead and do the output here. Okay, so we are let's go ahead and get this above here. So that we load that up, we have the horsetail, that's great. If we're not targeting something, we also don't see the window. Great, that's fine. Which means this is no longer necessary. Everything's working as expected. Okay, so we can show the window, we hide the window. We show the window, we hide the window. That's great. We get the Daggerlad scrap deposit. Okay, we want to take a little break here and do a code commit. Because we've made some good progress here, we want to preserve that. So coming on in here, we have the redhead says, any interest in standing in Thorns, Ale Hall, and being a target? You know what? We have the ability to fake out the ability to do this, so sure, return to Thorns Gate. And I think we're rapidly coming to a good breaking point here on this stream. So, if you have any last minute questions, comments, concerns, now's a great time to start getting those into chat so we can look at them before the end of the stream. And if we don't get to it today, we'll get to it next time. Alright, so if you didn't know, you can come into the inn not only through the normal way, but also through the festival arena. Oh no, I'm not trying to go to the inn. I am trying to go to the festival arena. Even better. Okay. You know what? I do not even want to think about that. Hello, Ithilien.
Oh.
I'm going to stand on my back here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've added this. So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and say we added this and that. And in main, we added images. And we added this. So we have the target window background, you have images, and we have main. So added images file and target window background. One minute to the bar fight. Okay, so we've got that. Added turbine files. And the reason we do this is you can just tell people, hey, you need to download these other files in order to make this plugin work. You can even, if you use LOTRO Plugin Compendium, set a dependency on those files. But I think it's nice to have it all packaged up together. And because these files change very rarely, and they are very small, I think it's a more reasonable thing to do is to just provide them. And then they just work out of the box. You don't need to have this other thing. Also, the LOTRO Plugin Compendium, the default way it downloads the turbine files, also downloads the turbine example plugins, which I feel like kind of pollutes your list of plugins here, which you may not want. Maybe you do want them, maybe you want to play around with them. But by default, the library files I feel like should be separate from the example files, and right now they're not. So I like wrapping those in. So I added the turbine files, and we're going to come in here and import that here as well. Okay. So in addition to that, don't pass in Fateful Toolkit parameter. Now, I actually don't like this change from a unit testing perspective necessarily. On the one hand, it's nice to not have to query this information in a disparate place. On the other hand, you want this thing to have some sort of an interface that could be swapped in for testing or something. Yeah, you want to be able to fake this out somehow if you were unit testing. But we're not there yet, and we can circle back around if that becomes important. So we have pulled that out into the main. Holy moly, so many changes. Handle herb target. We got rid of the local is Fateful Toolkit equipped, and I think we can do all of that. Okay, so local output, debug output. Now we're just checking if herb, and we are not looking there. That looks great. Okay, what else? Added file image IDs. Okay, target window. Added initial target window class. Okay, this is just test function and testing code, and we do not need to commit that. This, okay. Handle herb target now passes herb to target window class. Yeah, pretty much. Wait, not all of that, just this. Great. Okay, so that was breaking apart all of those differences into They're different commits because they were all kind of disparate little changes. And now if we want to know, okay, what was adding turbine files, it was just adding these two files and this change. And if we needed to back it out or understand what was going on, it's an isolation. If all of those changes from here to here had been let's see, is that, yeah. So if all of those changes had been done as a single commit, it would have looked like this. We would have added the background and the class and the type and changed up Flora and also committed all of these images and also all these changes to main and these changes to strings and this new target window. And it would feel really incoherent to try to pick it apart and be like, okay, what is actually going on here? If this commit message was just like, did some stuff, LOL. And so by breaking it apart, we can be like, okay, step by step, what did we do here? Oh, we added this, and we split this out, and we added this check. And so we can step by step get from here to here. If we're looking at this in 6 months' time, and we're trying to remember what on earth did we do, this is a way we can help ourselves. And if we needed to undo something, say one of these changes caused a bug, and we were like, okay, I know it was this change right here. You have a chance of unpicking it because you can see, okay, here are the minimal changes that we thought went with this objective. In a way that's just much harder if it's all just collapsed together into a single commit. Okay, let's go ahead and unload this and reload it. And we can see all this testing code is still doing well. Okay, window correctly shows or hides based on whether we are targeting an herb. Okay, make a draggable window. Well, it doesn't do that yet. Should be wide enough. Yeah, I think it will. Use a label under or on top of the icons for plants that can multiply it to consider displaying maximum expected number separately. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so where we're going to pick it up next time is when, wow, hang on, before I go too far, I want to go over to our Flora. So we need a side-by-side version of this function. In fact, it could replace this function and then just have a function that kind of reads through it and spits out the same information. But we want to structure this information into a data structure. We want to structure this into a data structure, not just a string that we return, but something that can be interrogated by a different part of the program. Or is that really appropriate? Because this thing, if this isn't already that structure that we need, maybe we need to change this instead. Music says, I like the look. Yeah, we're taking advantage of the Baker hat, whatever this is called. The Hat of Baker's Delight. Rosenblum, when Rosenblum is on, also has one. But of course the hat goes with the pan, obviously. As far as backpacks go, I've really gone off of capes in favor of backpacks like this. And I really like this one for any character that I'm playing that is a scholar. And with the advent of 4 professions for a character, this character of mine is in fact a scholar, so that works. But thank you, Wizik. Okay, so yes, I think Wizik says nice. Yeah, thank you. I think what I said before about a parallel version is maybe not right. Note. This seems flawed. We should just use the data as stored in the lookup table adjusted if needed by Fateful Toolkit. If we can't do that, we should change how the data is stored rather than needing a separate function to interpret it. Okay. In fact, can I strike this out? I can. Okay, great. Kind of a standard markdown thing is if double tilde will give you a struck out section of text. Okay. Awesome. So when we pick up next time, or if I get to it in between, what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach this target window how to iterate through the flora here and set up stuff. Now, the first thing I'm thinking is actually when target window is created, we're probably going to go ahead and create all 5 files. So create all 5 files here. And that's going to be this list of them, right? Crimson, Umber, Verdant, Golden, Violet. When we update based on selected herb, change which are visible, change their text, and center them in the window. Or is it nicer to have them always in the same location? Question mark. That could be interesting because even if you can't distinguish the colors very easily, if you're always looking for one in the 4th column, or always show all of them and just have 00050. Is it nicer to always show all of them, but only some will be dropped? Play around. So we'll do a little playing around. Once we're showing these files, we'll play around with only having some of them visible. If only some of them are visible, centering them or evenly spacing them in some way, or always having them visible, maybe having them visible but grayed out. Try making them grayed out if they don't drop. That kind of appeals to me because the window is definitely wide enough for 5 files to show up. And if they're always in the same orientation, then it's a little bit easier to be like, oh, are these advanced or basic? And that's the problem I have with the herbs in the waste, is a lot of them are duplicates of herbs you find in North Ithilien, and they drop an extract that is just not as useful for getting those reputation items for the different factions of the Host of the West. So that actually appeals to me because if it's not something in the right 2 columns of those 5, then maybe I don't care about it. Maybe I just go find something else. I mean, it's no harm to pick them up, except it takes a little bit of time. But you could spend that time better, maybe. Okay. So that's where we're at next time, is kind of deciding on how we're going to present these things, although I'm really leaning towards always show all 5 of them, but gray out the ones that don't drop, and either have 0 below them or no text below them, only having text on the ones that can drop. And that, I think, will mean that we'll have a lot less to do during an update. We'll just update those textuals, gray it out or not, update the total values, and call it a day. So that'll be the next time we get together. That's what we're going to start with, and we'll go from there. Awesome. And I think I am not seeing anything else. So, yes, that is everything we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I hope to see you here next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.